Stay until the very end of this video to discover the choice that rewrites two futures, and a vow spoken where no one expected a vow at all. Chapter 1. The calendar that tried to control the heart. Lena Voss believed in clocks, calendars, and the benevolent tyranny of a well-made list. In her world, love was a detail that fit neatly between flower trials and acoustic sound checks. Or else it was a variable to be managed when caterers ran late and lights flickered at rehearsal. She was the city's favorite planner of impossible weddings. The one who could turn a drafty warehouse into a garden and a storm into a story. On a breezy weekday, an apple rolled free from a street vendor's crate and bounced down the slope of Rosemont Avenue. The world tilted. Lena stepped after it, because that is what planners do. Catch what is trying to get away, and nearly slid off the curb as a bicycle sped around the corner. A hand caught her elbow before the fall got serious. She looked up, steadied, and saw a man whose smile apologized even before he spoke. Evan Hale wore the kind of gentle confidence that makes people tell him the truth. "That apple owes you rent," he said. The apple settled at the drain, harmless as a drowned idea. She laughed despite herself. He glanced at her daily planner, edges frayed, tabs like prayer flags. "You run the city?" "No," she said, feeling the flush she always denied having. "I just rent it by the hour." He walked with her for a block, asking about nothing and everything. She noticed the careful listening, the kindness that made space for someone else's day. Then he turned at the corner and called back. "Try not to chase produce into traffic." Lena, who could thread a needle of time through the eye of a hurricane, forgot the next item on her list for a full 30 seconds. Later, she would say that's when the schedule started to slip. Chapter 2. The bride on the board and the name in the room. The city's philanthropic darling, Marina Caldwell, booked Lena for a late summer estate wedding that promised to be a gallery of light. Lanterns floating on an oval pond, string quartet beneath oaks. Vows timed to the blue hour. Lena measured the lawn, sketched tent lines, and controlled the horizon the way she always did, by believing it could be arranged. When Marina arrived at the site meeting, she wasn't alone. The man at her side had good leather shoes the same color as trust. Lena knew the shoes before she knew the man. Then he lifted his face, and there he was. The apple rescuer, the corner smile. Formidable and unexpectedly familiar. "This is Evan," Marina said, warm and serene. "He's the reason I believe in doing things all the way through." Lena's heart made an unprofessional motion. She shook his hand anyway, her voice the sound of umbrellas opening in order. "We'll make this beautiful." She opened her folder and began to speak the language that saved her. Logistics. Evan carried the chairs from the truck when the delivery stalled. He asked sharp questions about weather contingencies, parking flow, the fragility of drifting lanterns. Lena marked him in her mind as an asset. Planners always categorize, as if they live by a ledger where outcomes become solvency. And yet there was something else. A noise under the numbers. An old melody she had not rehearsed. That night, she wrote 3 versions of the day of schedule and tucked them under her pillow like letters she would never send. Professionalism, she told herself, is just love with rules. Chapter 3. Constellations and floor plans. Venue walkthroughs multiplied. Marina was swept by a fundraising tour, and Lena's emails walked the couple through decisions in neat bullet points. Evan showed up to every meeting, attentive to linens, amused by the politics of seating charts, steady as the North Star. One evening, the light turned honeyed, and the groundskeeper forgot to lock the garden observatory. Evan found his way inside. Lena followed to warn him about security sensors, and instead found him staring up through the small glass dome. Stars sifted themselves across a sky the color of late promises. "Does the sky always fit in here?" he asked. "Or does it simply agree to for an hour?" "It agrees," she said, thinking how often she'd asked the day to do the same. They lay on the floor, heads almost touching, the air holding secrets. She explained that constellations weren't destiny, but stories someone drew, so fear could find a shape and take a breath. He told her he said yes to Marina because momentum can look like fate when you're running fast enough, and because he admired her for building good things. He said it like a confession that expected no absolution. Lena cataloged his words, then boxed them in a room she labeled "Do Not Open." On the way out, he accidentally brushed her hand with his. A filament trembled in a bulb that had been waiting a long time to be lit. She turned off the light and turned on her rules. Chapter 4. The Dance Lesson and the Almost. Marina called from a car that hummed like a project. "Lena, can you run the first dance rehearsal with Evan? I'm stuck in a donor dinner. He'll need counts." Lena said yes. She always said yes to the job. In the empty lawn, under test lights that made every shadow look like a future, Evan stood waiting in rolled sleeves, tie loosened, the day still on him. She set the speaker beside the makeshift dance floor, loaded a track, and stepped toward him with a composure she prayed for. 1, 2, 3, she counted. He was better than most at learning the held breath between steps. He missed the pivot once and apologized as if words could rewind a second. On the third chorus, they found the swing, the place where her body understood before her mind agreed. He looked down at her, not like a man about to break a rule, but like a man who found one, and recognized his own handwriting on it. A breeze lifted the leaves. The song asked a question and held it. When his hand cupped her shoulder blade, the world narrowed to the precise size of the space between them. She could have leaned. He could have closed the distance. A horn honked on the road, and the spell broke like glass that had been under stress. They stepped away, strictly parallel again. She paused the music and said, in a voice that tasted of steel, "You two will be perfect." On the drive home, Lena counted lights and swore to each one she would not be the story that interrupted theirs. Chapter 5. Smoke in the valley, lanterns in a gym. The week of the wedding, smoke drifted in from fires far to the north. Not a danger, the news said. Just a haze that could ruin photographs and scratch throats. The estate's air monitors blinked red. The venue shut its gates. Vendors texted anxious strings of punctuation. Lena bent over her list until it turned into a map. Plan B. The local community gymnasium, usually echoing with basketballs and squeaks of sneakers, agreed to open overnight. Lena called in favors that owed her nothing. She strung the gym with borrowed lanterns, wrapped the walls in linen, so that the place forgot its name. She swapped the oak lawn for lines on a maple floor, and told each line it would be a path to joy. Evan arrived with 3 volunteers, and moved chairs like a man resolving something. He asked for assignments. She gave him ropes and knots, which is to say she let him hold what could keep. At 2 in the morning, a slow song the speaker didn't ask for found its way through the hall. They worked beside each other without speech, until words came out stripped of their uniforms. "I don't know how to keep this clean," Evan said softly. "I don't want to harm anyone." Lena tied a bow so sharp it looked like a promise. "Then don't," she said. "Stand where you truly stand." He looked at her as if the floor might tilt. She shook out a runner and refused to step closer. A planner's job is to quiet chaos, not cause it. By dawn, the gym was a lantern-lit version of grace. Marina walked in, took Lena's hands, and said, "This is a miracle." Lena said, "It's a team effort," and meant both halves of the sentence. Chapter 6. The rehearsal and a door that clicked. There are moments the day does not speak, and there are moments when it talks too loudly. During the walkthrough, a microphone hot by accident amplified a whisper that wasn't meant for the room. Someone asked Evan, off to the side, "Are you ready?" He answered, "I want to be sure we're all being honest." The word honest bounced against the bleachers and came back wearing shoes. People looked around, as if the walls might have said it. Marina's eyes found his. She smiled, a steadying expression, and asked everyone for 10 minutes. She took Evan to a small office that smelled of old trophies. The door clicked. No one knows what words fit between two people when the room decides to be an accomplice. But when the door opened, Marina's mascara was perfect, and Evan's tie was straight. Her cheeks had the calm of a decision safely made. She called Lena in and asked for a moment alone with her. "I can read a seating chart," Marina said, not unkind. "And I can read a woman's eyes. I will not be a story that people tell for the wrong reasons." Lena's hands went cold. "I would never." "I know," Marina said. "Sometimes love is the lesson, not the certificate." We started running and never checked whether the finish line was ours. She reached for Lena's hand. "Be gentle with my friend." The ceremony did not happen that day, not as printed. Guests were seated to music that covered the absence of steps. Marina walked onto the floor and spoke with the clarity of a person who chooses sunlight. She said they were grateful but not ready to bind themselves without certainty. There were gasps, then a wave of applause that sounded like relief and fondness braided together. People ate cake anyway. It is the nature of cake to witness both vows and revisions. Chapter 7. A smaller sky and a wider promise. Life rarely writes epilogues on a banner. Weeks later, the city breathed clear again. The observatory in the garden, the one that had held their shared constellation, reopened quietly. Lena went there with a bouquet of leftover hydrangeas she didn't need but wanted. The color of forgiveness. Evan was already inside, because some scenes wished to be symmetrical. He held no flowers, only his hands, open and uncertain. "I told her the truth," he said, "and she told me hers. We loved the idea of each other. We loved the work we did together. And then there was a different truth that asked to be said out loud." Lena set the hydrangeas on the ledge. "I built a life where feeling something was a liability," she admitted. "Every chair leg measured, every aisle exact. I forgot that joy needs unmarked margins." They stood without touching, and let their words walk around themselves until the room felt safe again. Evan smiled in the small way that means a fault line is settling into a landscape. "I'm not asking for forever to start on a timetable," he said. "I'm asking for a walk, and for you to let the apple roll if it wants, and for us to see where it stops." She laughed, a sound that had been practicing under her ribs for months. A walk sounds like a reasonable rebellion. Outside, the city waited with its ordinary miracles. Buses arriving on time, dogs taking their owners for honest strolls, a boy who knew new chords on a guitar. They stepped onto the sidewalk and did a thing neither of them was trained for. They let the day decide some of itself. That winter, a small ceremony took place in the community gym, under the same lanterns that had watched the unwedding. No programs, no seating chart, only a handful of people who understood that love's shape can't always be finalized before print. Marina stood at the edge with a grin light enough to float. She hugged Lena and whispered, "Good stories don't waste their paper." There were promises, not of perfection, but of presence. They said they would try to tell the truth even when it was inconvenient, to make rooms prettier and also kinder, to leave space in the schedule where joy could wander in and find a chair. I tell this as a woman who watched them from the aisle and believed, only then, that time can hold love if you let it breathe. She watched the two of them dance on a floor that had once mapped a different game, and thought how glorious it is to be wrong at the right time. The lanterns didn't make stars, but they made courage. And courage, in my experience, is what turns a plan into a life. If this tale moved you, please subscribe to the channel, activate notifications so you don't miss our next story. Give the video a like, leave a comment with your favorite moment, and share with someone who loves love.